Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Hi guys, I'm Arthur, and climate change is real.
Hi, I'm Jeraria, and I'm all the way from South Africa.
Hi, I'm Neil, and there's nothing interesting about me.
Hi, I'm Willow, and this is You Subjects of the World.
So, Today we're going to be talking about natural disasters, but we all just wanted to take a moment to thank all the first responders to natural disasters and 9/11, which is its anniversary today. So thank you, because without you, a lot of lives would be lost. Does anyone
Yeah,
else want to say
it's a
something?
tough job, but someone's got to do it. And the people who do it are pretty cool.
Has to be done.
Yeah, they're the real heroes of today.
And I think their job is becoming more and more important lately because of all the natural disasters that are happening more frequently as time goes on, which I think is the reason we're kind of making this subject today, is that this is not become a terrible thing that happens every like 10 years. This is a very frequent thing that is happening often all around the world. Natural disasters are becoming just a part of our life.
Yeah, and in a way you kind of have to think about it and kind of see where is it coming from, why is it kind of happening, because while you don't want to get used to it, you kind of want to you kind of want to start preparing for them, but you don't want to prepare for them because it's not exactly something I prepare for. So you kind of got to think where they're coming from and why it's happening.
Global warming. That's what
Yeah.
So does anybody want to open the discussion with a certain topic? I know, Arthur, you just said global warming. Do you want to open with that then?
Sure.
Sure, why not?
All right.
Fun.
Who disagrees?
Yeah, I don't
I don't
we're
think
gonna see
anyone-
that.
I don't think anyone does, so.
Yeah, I don't think anyone disagrees.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really important issue and like central to this issue. I think global warming is a thing, and I think if top scientists of the world are not going to convince people, maybe 3 kids on their laptops will. That's definitely one to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to global warming, you can't immediately start thinking big. You gotta kind of start small, even if it's like with just you and your family or something like that, and then it'll grow and eventually get there. But it's not something that's gonna kind of disappear in an instant, if you know what I'm saying.
Or big
So-
companies tell Amazon to have better, because actually it's the big things that are really important. And I think if we like just write to the big companies and make them understand that we're not going to give them money unless they change their ways, then that can be a way bigger effect.
Definitely.
But also recycling.
Yeah, but
Go ahead.
yeah, that's a good point. But you kind of have to see, because one person writing to big company isn't going to really do much. So you kind of have to start small in your community and then grow bigger, and then eventually you are going to get noticed because there's so many of you. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think a big problem with, so here's the thing. I just want to say that so global warming, obviously, like over 90%, I think it's like 97 or something, some crazy number like 90, and the 90% of all climate scientists agree that global warming exists. And it's absolutely insane. And obviously I can't just use, that as evidence that's, but there's also, evidence of how drastically the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere has increased. And it's just insane. We've actually reached, I believe, I don't know how long this was ago, maybe a year ago or a few months ago, or no, multiple months ago, this happened. We reached a tipping point in the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, to the point where I don't think it was ever going to be the same. It was never going to be the same again, and for like tens of thousands of years, something like that. Again, this was a while ago when I read this, but so it's absolutely insane. And even if for some reason all the carbon dioxide and methane and crap we're pumping into the atmosphere, that's deteriorating our ozone layer, and making creating smog in our world, even if that isn't because of climate change, which, if you think that if we're doing that, it would have some effect, and you're seeing an effect. So if there's an effect, there's normally a cause. So I feel like that's a lot of evidence. And even if some outlandish world where climate change doesn't exist, what's the price of being wrong about climate change existing? Having a better, cleaner air. Oh, what a horrible problem. What a horrible price to pay if we're wrong about climate change. If we're right about climate change and we decide, let's say we say that, oh, climate change doesn't exist. And what's the price if we're wrong about that? Well, guess what? The world ends. That's the price. You can see how there are different prices to pay there and how there's a lot of evidence pointing that climate change does exist. So that's basically where I stand on that.
Yeah, when you're talking about like how it affects the world around us and stuff like that, there was something that started annoying me. Like, okay, so I live in quite a small place. I don't live in a big city, so I live quite far out and stuff like that. My favorite things is the nighttime sky. One of my favorite things. And what annoyed me a lot for some reason was when I went to Johannesburg, which is a really huge city in South Africa. Second, it's some people kind of think it's the capital of South Africa, but when I went there, I stayed at my friend's house, and in the evening, the sun didn't actually, the sky didn't actually go full dark. It stayed this orangey type of color, and it made it look as if the sun was going to rise any second. And that I found was something very scary because it just tells how much we're polluting the air, how much we're really just making a mess of things. Because I don't know, it was just my personal preference, but the fact that the sky at night was orange was just frightening for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention it also can be caused by light pollution too in the air. That happened a lot, not a lot, but I remember once when I was younger, we were in more of town, and it was around 4th of July, and the whole sky was basically orange from all the fireworks getting launched into the sky and all that.
Yeah, a lot of big cities have kind of hues to them because of just all the light pollution. Yeah, I like the analogy of like the world is like a human body, and humans are kind of like a disease, to sort of reference Matrix here, and it's reacting. It's sending out antibodies. It's heating up, and it's causing disasters to try and kill the antibodies, and we have to kind of learn to coexist with the atmosphere we live in, because if we don't, it is going to kill us. And this is like my third favorite planet, so I want to keep living on it.
I think, and not to mention, not even just us. The thing is, it's almost like going to your human body reference. I thought that was pretty cool. It's like antibiotics because it's killing everything else too. It's killing it's killing plant life. It's killing animals. So yeah, it's like a course of antibiotics. You're also killing the good bacteria. You're not just killing the bad ones. That's the problem. Not that I'm calling all humans bad. We're kind of implying there. So that's kind of doing there.
Yeah, I think when it comes to kind of solving this issue or trying to make it better, as I kind of mentioned earlier, you got to start small. You can't like almost immediately just start living completely off the grid without electricity and stuff like that. You kind of have to start small, make small little steps in your life to change it, and then kind of show others around you how it's helping. And where is my thought going? So it's like it's got to start small, and then you get better, you get bigger, more eco-friendly stuff. Doing stuff that's just in general, like taking, for instance, public transport. Kind of where I live, it's quite spread out, so you get a lot of cars, a lot of stuff like that. Public transport is quite a sorry, my words are lost. Is a very popular way to travel around, but like you should reduce the amount of cars you take, for instance. rather travel in pair, rather travel together to places if you're all going to same places. Small things like that, like recycling, and then making using your, for instance, not rubbish, your food wastage, and turning it into compost and stuff like that. It's kind of small little things that you do just by yourself to begin with. Because the only way it's going to change is if you start now. If you're going to sit here and say yes, climate change is a big problem, you got to think slowly how you got to start helping to change the world around you, and then you can kind of think bigger. Because if you're going to sit here and say, okay, climate change is a huge problem, but I have no idea how to solve it, and I'm just going to sit here and complain about it, you're kind of not really doing much. You've got to start somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, I always wonder what people like say to themselves to try and deny climate change. Like people are sitting at home like, oh, the world's fine. There's just some like speedster in the ocean spinning around and making tornadoes underwater, and that's what hurricanes are, or something like that. Like, yeah, I don't think like the nega flash is the reason that we're having climate change. I think or we're having hurricanes. I think it's more of it's our problem. And yeah, we bought solar panels on our house, and they've been really great. And I recommend anyone who is interested in doing that to do it, because it's also been very cheap. Because so if you're an extremely selfish person like I am, you can think about the world, but you also think about yourself. Has anyone here ever personally dealt with any natural disasters, like been inside of one or reacted to one, had family? I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, I've been in 2 hurricanes, and I have family down in Florida, and they just experienced Irma. So that the ones that I experienced was because I live in New Jersey, so I was in my house for Sandy, and the power went out for, I don't know if it might have been more than a week, and we live out in the middle of nowhere, so our water has to be electrically pumped up through a well, so no one, people who didn't have a generator couldn't get water. We fortunately had a generator, so we were able. So some people came to our house, and we were able to, you know, because we had electricity, so we had a generator. And it's actually a quick PSA about generators. You have to be careful, because there was a family during Sandy who brought their generator inside their house because it was raining, and it killed them because, you hear about, how if you turn your car on and you're in a garage and you roll down the windows, you'll poison yourself. It's the same concept with generators. An entire family died because of what they did there. They put the generator inside their house and it was running. So yeah, you need to be very careful. But yeah, also there was another hurricane that I'm pretty sure I was in my house for. That one wasn't that bad. The Irma, obviously that literally just happened in Florida. I have family in like in the Tampa region, and in another place I can't remember. So, but yeah, thankfully it was actually the Irma weakened like dramatically by the time it hit them, and the predictions for damage went way down. So that was definitely very fortunate. So that's my experience then, like personal.
Well, for me personally, I haven't actually been in any particular natural disasters. As far as I can recall, my country hasn't. Oh, okay, this is me. I'm an unfamiliar community. Sometimes there'll be a part where I don't pay attention to the news, but there was a little while back we had huge fires across in the western part of our country, and it was quite crazy actually. But no, I've got a friend who lives in Charleston, and it was quite scary for him because they were kind of preparing to leave and stuff. And I was like quite relieved to hear that I had like gone down from a category 3 to a 1 or something like that, if I recall correctly. So yeah, I haven't exactly been in a natural disaster myself personally.
I've never actually experienced any firsthand, but I almost experienced a hurricane when I lived in Florida. and I almost experienced 3 tornadoes. 2 of them were when I lived in Ohio, and 1 was in Florida. And the one was so bad that it was actually thunder and lightning all outside and probably going to touch down, but luckily it didn't. And it was like in the middle of the night, and I was younger, so it wasn't really something I remembered too much. And same with the hurricane. It didn't actually hit, and I was also younger, so it wasn't something I remember too much of. But with family who's had any, I don't think I've had any family affected by natural disasters, luckily.
Neil, I didn't know you lived in New Jersey. I also live in New Jersey.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, during Sandy, I was up in Boston area, so I kind of just like was texting with my dad and my brother, and they're like going shopping for water. But when Irene hit, I was here. And I mean, honestly, I just like put on a skirt and went outside and like posed for like Marilyn Monroe pictures and had a lot of fun. I have a very distinct memory of seeing this like giant grocery bag flying in the wind and like holding onto it and then letting it go. And then a second later, wondering where it was and seeing like one of the tallest size skyscrapers in Jersey City, it being at like the top of it. And it flew all the way up there. And I'm like, oh man. And like I watched near the pier and saw like the waves kind of coming closer. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
I also have like one distinct memory of I went to like what pier was it that on the Jersey Shore that the entire park, I'm pretty sure like a big part of that just went under the water. I went on that place. I'm pretty sure I went on the roller coaster that went underwater, and just seeing that, like I was there and now it's all underwater. Yeah, it was pretty insane.
Yeah, luckily I live like right above the water line of where it was, so none of like 2 blocks away from me got pretty flooded, but I didn't get flooded. We just lost power for like a week or so.
Yeah, like me.
But I feel pretty fortunate from what I gathered. But I find it interesting that I was talking to my partner about this, and there's sort of effect that people have. Like they were talking about how like people only really care about Hurricane Irma once it hit Florida and not when it hit like Caribbean islands or when it hit Puerto Rico. And there is definitely an effect of like you only if people are very selfish and they only really care about things when it affects them. So like I don't care if there's a hurricane affecting some people a world away. I care a little bit if it's affecting people in my country and maybe some of my family members. And I care a lot when it's affecting me personally and making my life upset. And I think it's a very interesting human trait that everyone has to a degree. I like to call it like the tribal effect, because like when we were in tribes, we had to care about our tribe. This is my tribe. I care about this. I don't care about your tribe because I'm trying to survive. But I think we still don't kind of see the world as our tribe. And I think we kind of need to meet aliens before we're like fully going to see the world as our tribe. But I think that's kind of an effect that we really need to work on, which is just like I see it in myself and how much like I care about things that are very far away and very kind of distant and don't feel real. But it isn't necessarily, it's definitely not a good thing. And we need to sort of acknowledge that and move past that and help people even if we are not related to them.
So I find what you were saying, I find it interesting because I have something to say on that. Here you're talking about the tribal attitude. And I know my my dad was saying, I don't know, somebody originally quoted this, I don't know, but that it's not, the problem isn't selfishness, it's not expanding what you see as yourself. For example, you said that it would upset you more if it was affecting your family. And that is what you said. Oh my God, again. And so, not really. So that would be, so if you were to, because you're talking about the tribe, kind of thing. So So for example, you have to understand that we're all in this together as the world. I mean, we're all going down with the ship if it happens. And I mean, there'd probably be like, I don't know what, like maybe 30 people will be on Mars when that happens at this rate. But I mean, we're all in this together. When you think about it, the people going to Mars are the ones that aren't the ones that are brave. We're the ones that are brave for staying here.
It's
Just
like
saying.
that High School Musical
But
song.
anyways,
We're all in this together.
yeah, we are. We're all in this together.
You heard it here
Typical
first,
traitors
guys.
going to
High
Mars.
School Musical got it right about climate change.
They did.
No,
We are all in this together.
Neil, I want to make one thing clear. That was kind of a hypothetical, like, average person. I am not the average person. If something is affecting my family, I don't care either. Honestly. No, I have family in Florida, and I don't care about them either. I'm more selfish than the average person. But it's.
Or maybe you need to expand your idea of self and then be selfish. Oh.
Well, if I have to expand my uncle into myself, I don't want to do that. He's not a nice man.
Okay, let's move on. But yeah.
Yeah. Other people
Yeah.
are.
So.
Although you said you wanted to say something?
That was earlier for the sex.
Oh, sorry. I'm so behind with everything. I'm so sorry. And no, going with oh my gosh, what were you saying? Oh yes, about the whole. I was actually quite surprised because like living in South Africa, kind of, and the whole thing happening in the United States. A couple of days ago, I was like, where is this actually happening? Because like my friend was talking about, okay, this place and that place and where this was happening. I'm like, I don't actually know where these places are. Because like it was kind of hard to understand everything when I didn't know where it was. But the other day or last night actually, okay, I'm a tennis fan, so I watched the tennis finals of the U.S. Open. So in the winner's speech, the lady asked if he wanted to say something, and he was talking about because apparently it hit what's under there, like you know where Cuba and all those countries are. Apparently it hit there first, and I actually wasn't aware of this because of my because I didn't know that much about everything that was going on. So afterwards I was actually thinking to myself, yeah, it's okay, the hurricane has gone down, but I try to kind of know what's going on in the world around me because it kind of interests me what's happening in different countries. And I think I was a little disappointed in myself that I didn't actually fully understand what was going on because at first I just heard there was a hurricane in the United States and it was insane and I thought it was like really bad. And then I heard there was another one and then I heard it went, sorry to be totally blunt, but what's all the countries kind of below Florida and all like apparently it was, what's the word for it?
The Caribbean Islands?
Yeah, the Caribbean.
The Caribbean, that's what I hit.
And as a
That
natural...
was really bad. That was really bad.
Yeah, so I like all the stuff about Omar coming and it's all coming to America. I was surprised because I didn't hear anything or not really much at all about the Caribbean islands and how badly they'd been affected because only afterwards when I went to go check it out, I realized that it had been hit really, really bad. So I think it also, natural disasters also kind of, like you said, the whole selfishness thing, like what television shows us is usually what they think kind of matters most. So for instance, in South Africa, because the United States is a big country and yada, 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 they mentioned that the hurricane was coming that direction. But they kind of failed to mention that it has also hit the Caribbean really badly. So I think that the whole natural disasters in general, you kind of hear about the bigger ones or just the certain, just more just the you hear about most of the time you only hear it because people think it's important to other people, but when it comes to like smaller countries and places where, for instance, people don't really not want to know much about, but aren't really exactly interested about, they kind of like sidetrack it or just sideline it and kind of say, oh yeah, and that happened as well. So I have no idea what my point was on this, but
Yeah, it also affected Puerto Rico
So-
a lot, which Puerto Rico is a fun little game of asking your friends what Puerto Rico is to America, and seeing them totally get it wrong. A lot of people don't know that Puerto Rico is a territory. A lot of people think it might be a state. Some people don't think it's related at all and think it's a separate country. And so
Yeah, it's very good.
yeah, it's really fun to ask people it. I
For
recommend.
all people, I recommend going to YouTube and typing in CGP Grey American Empire to understand the whole thing about territories. I'm pretty sure he understands everything.
Oh, yeah,
explains
he
everything
does
here.
a
It's actually
great
really
video on that.
fascinating.
I recommend that
Yeah.
video as well. Although
American Empire.
I also recommend going out to your friends and asking them what Puerto Rico is, and
To see what they say.
answer.
You're
Because-
pushing that very much.
It's how World War II happened, right? Puerto Rico attacked everyone. That's World War II, right? You look on YouTube some insanely hilarious videos of people getting some questions wrong. But I want to say something really quick about how I believe that one of the Caribbean islands, because I'm not that familiar on this, was actually the vast majority of the island was left uninhabitable. So there are people who don't have homes. I mean, it's insane how bad this was. Yeah, St. Martin, I think. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that
I think like as you mentioned, you just said the entire country basically. I just said country.
Isn't
Island. Yeah. So sorry. What did you say?
I was saying, isn't
I was-
St. Martin in the hospital because he was an island that got
stop. Yeah, he's actually not Saint Martin. He's the all-knowing God Martin, something like that. He types for his name in the thing. There's no going past this point, Martin, something like that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
As I kind of wanted to say, like you just said, the entire island kind of was left uninhabitable, and it's kind of sad because you don't really hear that much on the news. It's like it's an entire island full of people that can't really go back there, but no one kind of bothers to say it out loud or broadcast it that much. And I think that's like kind of one reason people deny natural global warming, because they don't know these things, because these things aren't told, and they're not kind of spread out to the world, and you kind of have to dig quite far to find them.
Yeah, the moral of this episode is people are ignorant, stupid, and selfish.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not to
Well-
mention, and then we have to debate on how if it's a good thing or a bad thing that you're selfish. This is this episode in a nutshell.
No, it reminds me of a quote from Men in Black where Tommy Lee Jones is like how like people are stupid. A person is smart and like able to think
Yeah.
reasonably, but people, when you get them into a big enough group, they're like
Yeah.
stupid. And I've been studying this a lot when it comes to mob mentalities and
Oh yeah, I
uh,
love that quote.
the Charlottesville riots and all things about that, and how like people kind of just get group aggression and act wilder than they would if they were by themselves. And not that I'm saying that excuses those actions, but that's just a natural thing that happens.
A reason. It's a reason.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I didn't know where I was going with that. I was just mentioning it. Go, please keep
But
talking.
so I was just gonna say that. I mean, a lot of things with climate change are. I mean, a lot of people, they just don't think. What they do is they think that, or at least missteps. For example, I know the transportation industry. It's 13% of climate change. That's what it accounts for. Another quick thing is that because a lot of people, they'll go out and actually buy like a brand new, not a lot of people, but they'll go and they'll say, it'd be best for the environment if I bought an electric car. It'd be so great for the environment. Well, that's the thing. It's a problem because then guess what your car is being run on now? For the most part, it's being run on coal now because coal power plants too. This power plants, because the majority of power plants are not nuclear, are not solar. You don't use wind power that much. We still use power from natural gas and other things like that. So it's, and not to mention, it's still a problem that you have to, or for example, a factory makes the cars, right? And all the material coming to make the cars, what it was used to mine that material, it's a whole rabbit hole. Honestly, the best thing you can do for the environment regarding your car is to actually use your car as long as you can before you get a new one. That's one of the best things you can actually do for the environment when it comes to a car. Another thing is, I know, so yeah, the 13% of, I'm pretty sure, climate change is caused by the transportation industry. I know over 50% is the animal agriculture industry. You need to also save water in some ways too, because, I mean, you just have to just understand the car was the main really point of that, because just quickly dispelling a myth. All right.
Yeah,
Back to
because
whoever
like,
wants to talk.
no, actually, I don't remember where it was actually from, but there's a show that kind of comes every Sunday, and here in South Africa, and it's really interesting. They usually have something quite different at the end of their show, and a couple of weeks ago, there was a lady, or rather a family, whose entire year of waste could be put into a jar this size. They would, like, for simple things, they would, toothbrushes they made themselves, then they recycled, they had a compost bin. But for instance, their kids would take their own plates to go get fast food. Then, like, basically that little thing consisted of like tags from clothes and small little stuff like that, which is really insane and pretty cool at the same time. And like their belongings could all fit in like I think it was a carry-on suitcase, if I'm not mistaken. But it was really eye-opening to see that yes, no, nobody has to go all the way and do that, but they what was my point in this once again? But yeah, I just found that pretty cool. And you were speaking of water and how we should conserve that. Our country is kind of in the middle of a drought, or kind of is in a drought at the moment. So, like for instance, in one of the cities that my family lives in, at the moment, or up until a month ago or so, they had water cuts every single day from, I think it was 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. because of just how much water was being used and how much they needed to save water. At one point, it was really bad. You could drive around and like dams were going low, and like for instance, like you'd go to one of our favorite rivers or natural pools or something like that, and the water would be ridiculously low. So I think it's slowly getting better, but I'm pretty sure South Africa on a whole as a country, there was a stat that came out a little while ago and showed just how much water South Africa was using. Like I think they compared it to some another foreign country, and we are basically using a ridiculous amount of water, which it's kind of crazy. But yeah, it was a real eye opener to see just how much water we're using compared to a lot of people, and how much we really should start conserving.
Yeah. What you said and what Neil said reminds me of something where it's important to continue using your cars, but I feel like that philosophy can be applied to most things. I think people often see recycling as like, oh, I just need to recycle, but recycling still uses, I think some people don't understand this, is that recycling still uses energy to recycle the object, and reusing objects
Yes.
is a way better thing, like shopping at thrift stores, or just like repurposing things you have as other things. Like I don't buy rags at stores, I just use old t-shirts. And just like there's lots of different ways. Just think like, instead of throwing this out or recycling this, how can I reuse this item in any way possible? And I think that is another really important way that people can have big impacts with just themselves.
And people need to understand that recycling plastic, I mean, there are some, not some very not that great things that are released into, the environment when we, because they, again, need to go, like Arthur was saying, uh, into a processing area where they, now I really want to yawn after you yawned. I hate how that's contagious. But they go into a processing area where, they have to melt it all down. And that can be a big problem for the environment. And it's just, I mean, it is a rabbit hole and you can't do everything. Like you can't do everything right. But you can do some things right. And you can just understand what they do when they recycle things. And another thing is we're talking about water. I know for a fact that a lot of the times food can, because a lot of people, when they think about water, think about turning off the faucet, making sure there are no leaks, but people don't understand that food, obviously they understand it, but some people don't think about it when they're talking about water and how we need to conserve it. A lot of food obviously needs water. So a huge thing that needs a food item that needs a lot of water. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's beef, and beef requires an insane amount of water to produce just like a burger patty. An insane amount of water. I don't remember the exact numbers, but you can actually just look it up. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's common knowledge, but it's an insane amount. What?
An insane amount.
What'd you say?
An insane amount was probably the official number.
An insane amount was the actual number.
Some on the
Yeah.
the list.
Yeah, because when you think of it, right, like when it comes to conserving water and in terms of plants and food in general, what's really nice is when, like for instance, you get places where they, for instance, water their crops, but then they have like systems where all the excess water and stuff gets funneled down and reused again because it's there and you just don't want it to dry up. And it's actually quite difficult because you have to kind of find the right balance between what's too much, and you have to draw the line somewhere because you kind of you don't want to cut things entirely, but you don't want to overdo it as well. So you kind of have to. It's a little difficult to find the balance, but I think it's very important.
With our gardens, we grow a lot of our own vegetables and fruit and all that. And instead of using like faucet water or water from the pipes or anything like that, we actually collect our own rainwater. And I know it's illegal in a lot of states, but I don't understand why, because it saves a lot of water from using from the faucet.
I'm actually very confused by that. It's illegal to collect rainwater.
Yeah, in some states it's illegal to collect rainwater. I have no idea why.
That is very that's insane.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. That sounds really weird.
Yeah, very much.
Such a weird law. You can look up so many weird laws. It's insane.
Yeah, I think it's also illegal to compost a certain amount sometimes in states. I know it's insane.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Like
so I actually have.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you can go. Just finish what you're saying. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say we actually wanted to collect our own rainwater, but if I actually think about it, with the whole drought going on, we actually haven't been getting that much rain, so that would kind of be a useless system at the moment.
Yeah, we've been.
No, you can finish because you were just talking about.
We've been getting some long dry times that we actually do have to start using normal water for our gardens, but our garden is almost about half an acre big. So that's a lot of water just to use from the faucet. So collecting the rainwater helps with the plants, also helps with watering our animals, since we have a whole bunch of animals. So I definitely would say water is a big deal. And what were you saying?
So I actually have the number. So it actually takes 660 gallons of water to produce a 1/3 pound burger. So just I got the number. All right, that's all I want to say.
That's a lot of water.
That's a lot of
Sounds like
water,
Amount of water.
and didn't I say, I read on the chart, it says insane. But yeah, it is an insane amount of water. It's absolutely insane. And yeah, I mean, it shocks people at first, but it's just insane. Cows drink a lot of water, a lot of water. Not even the cows, because you have to feed the cows with grain. So you have to water the grain, feed the cows. So it's an insane amount of water. A lot of people don't realize that. So I just
Like,
got
do you
the
think
number.
when it comes to that, like for instance, you said you need water to grow to water the grain, and then you kind of feed the grain to the cow. Plus, the cows drink a lot of water. But I think I'm not particularly sure with this. Kind of just I just came up with it in my head. But you think if you had more free range animals, that'd be that'd kind of conserve water in some sort of way, because you kind of just have you wouldn't be necessarily growing grain and buying grain, that sort of stuff. You'd kind of just be letting them eat what's off the land.
Yeah, so it would actually be a lot of I'm pretty sure it would help to an extent, but the thing is cows themselves drink an insane amount of water, because if you look at the statistics, how much it takes to make another food item, and you'll see that, it's the cows mainly that consume that. Not to mention the fact that when you make free range animals who eat themselves, you need a lot of land. And that land is also a big problem because you're cutting down forest life. And it actually, so it just opens up, a rabbit hole basically.
And
So
that's
also,
why Florida don't have homes.
What'd you say? Sorry, because
That's
you
why
kind of got
people in
cut off.
Florida don't have
Because
homes. And Puerto Rico. And St. Martin. And Houston.
Oh, because they're using it all for farmlands.
Yes, probably. I don't know.
I'm sorry, my headphones cut out. I didn't hear what you said there. I'm just
Don't
assuming
worry
it was
about
fine. Yeah.
It's never important.
All
Go
right,
ahead,
Will, you trying
Willow.
to say
You
something?
wanted to say something.
Yeah. You trying to say something?
well, I wanted to say something referring to the cows. It's not even entirely that they do drink a lot of water, but a lot of meat producers also put water into the cows in the meat to make it heavier so they can price it more. So they're even using the water to make the meat heavier to get more money. So that's the water from just getting them water, and then water from the food if you're not doing food range. And then there's water actually being put inside the meat to make it heavier.
And I think that a huge thing is that, speaking of that, and how corporations work, it's an important note to understand that. And I really don't want to get political, but a lot of the times when you
We already
see,
have.
yeah, because we kind of denounce all people who deny climate change. So
I mean,
that was kind of
hey, if you believe the Earth is flat, also go away. You too.
yeah. Yeah, I just don't see that happening. But the Earth being flat. But another thing, it's really big. It's the thing that where you see a lot of the climate change denialists are, and I'm not trying to say, so yeah, a lot of them, they had like a lot of the people behind the organization, not they actually have a lot of money, and they probably have a lot of stocks owned in companies that, industries which have producers. And guess what? If you start to deregulate, like you look, I believe Trump put a bunch, deregulated a bunch of climate change initiatives that were in the U.S. to try to stop producers from, overproducing and pumping our atmosphere full of harmful chemicals. But that's a huge problem when you see these people, because it's not just regular people who are saying climate change doesn't exist. A lot of people behind these organizations have a lot of money in these companies that are producing. these things. So there's a lot of financial bias in there. And a lot of people don't understand that people who actually don't believe in climate change, a lot of them are getting conned so that they can just make more money in the short term and screw us all over in the long term.
Yeah,
Big
I
problem.
actually don't think a lot of people don't believe in climate change. Well, I mean, a lot of people don't. But there's also a lot of people who like, if climate change is real, I lose a lot of money. And that's
Exactly.
yeah.
That's a big reason. They don't really care about what happens when they're gone. They care, oh, I just want to make a bunch of money.
Yeah, because speaking of the whole, like you said, putting water into the meat and into the cows and everything because make it heavier, make more money, etc. There was something that really interested me was I read up about this group of unschoolers who went to live in, I believe it was India. I don't exactly know what the word is, but they're basically communities where it's completely, I don't think it's, like I think they still get electricity and water, but they basically, well, for instance, everyone would, to put in simple terms, everyone would grow one type of thing or have one type of food source or anything, if you want to call it. So like someone would grow certain types of vegetables, someone would have chickens, etc. And then instead of the whole money making thing, you would exchange or swap. And I found that to be really cool because it's you self what would you call it? Sorry, it's all self-sustaining.
So,
And
yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of making it better for the environment because you're not charging extra. Okay, technically you could do that, but it's just this, it also brings people together, which is also another good thing. So you don't get what would you call it? So it kind of creates the sense of a community and it brings people together, and then there's no need to kind of when you're kind of in that sort of a what was good in that sort of a place, you kind of with the whole like growing food and exchanging it and all stuff like that, you become self-sufficient. You grow together as a community, and you kind of for instance, if one person just for instance was like the crops would die or something would happen, then everyone kind of pitch in and help, and it's kind of cool because then everyone faces the challenges together and you help each other along and you build each other up, and I think that's just a great way to live in general.
So if someone trying to say something, or so if anyone else wants to bring something up, you can, or we can go to break now because it's approaching that time. But does anyone else want to bring something up real quick before we go to break?
There was go ahead, Willa. You can go first.
All I have to say is I think self-sustaining places are very, very useful. Also, bargaining instead of using money to pay for things. Well, not pay for things, but like trading with other people is very nice, and it does help build relationships. That's all I got.
Well, I was gonna say, have you guys, well, it's a big thing, kind of global thing, but the whole Monsanto thing. Monsanto is basically a corporation. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about this, while I do know a little bit, if that makes sense. But they're basically a company that's kind of in charge of a whole load of companies globally. And you get a lot of marches often because the whole thing is about they use pesticides and harmful chemicals and stuff to make their produce grow better or to make it like look tastier, stuff like that. Like so kind of along those lines. And it's a very big global corporation. So like every once in a while I'll see like a march will happen in Australia or somewhere in Europe, or a couple months back I believe there was one here in South Africa. But I think those kind of companies do really kind of need to get stopped because yes, first of all they're mass producing everything and try to make as much money as they can out of it. But then they're also cheating because they're not using the proper things to make food healthy, and they're kind of making people sick in the process. And then they're also making money off of it all. So that's the kind of things that I think need to stop. Because, like, for instance, most people march and say stuff like they basically have to wear kind of like hazardous suits while they're spraying the stuff on the cups and stuff. So it's like, if you have to wear something that could while you spraying stuff on your food, it'll basically kill you. How is that making it safer for anyone else? You basically just making more people sick, and you getting money off of it. It's not exactly the greatest thing.
I think on a side note to that, I see a lot of things that they're doing, which I'm pretty sure, a bunch of big companies do, which I don't think, just a quick side, I don't think GMOs are like inherently bad. I think that just the way companies are, because let's be honest here, most companies aren't in it for making the world a better place. They're in it so they can. It's just the way companies are designed, unfortunately, where you buy stock and you have to pay people. It's all money. If you didn't care about, if your money wasn't the number one priority of the company, this is most companies, not all companies. If money wasn't the number one priority of the company would not succeed. It's just how it works, unfortunately, and it's just horrible. And another thing is just how we're just not really treating it right. So yeah, I guess I kind of went on a tangent after that and then didn't have anything to say. So if anyone wants to, I know after the break, I want to talk more about, we've talked a lot about climate change, but we haven't talked that much about natural disasters themselves. I definitely want to talk a little bit more about that. So do you want to go to break though right now? Does everyone want to do that?
Just talk about that now and then break afterwards.
Well, it is kind of a long.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is
it's too long, so I
that
think
can easily take up the next half of the show, an hour.
Yeah.
We don't need to take a break. It's not a
No, we don't
necessity.
need.
well, the
Okay, I guess we are taking a break.
yeah.
Yeah, because I kind of need to do something real quick. So I think that.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Glor in Miami. Anthony Mason is in New York. And tonight, one of the largest evacuations in U.S. history is reaching a critical point. More than 2.5 million people live in mandatory evacuation zones in Georgia and Florida. And highways are jammed as people head north to escape the worst of Irma. This is what the hurricane did in the Caribbean. Home after home destroyed.
Irma has sustained winds of 155 miles an hour, and now the forecast models seem to agree South Florida will take a brutal hit this weekend. The entire state may face hurricane-force winds. Late today, the National Weather Service tweeted, "This is as real as it gets. Nowhere in the Florida Keys will be safe. You still have time to evacuate."
We will have the latest on Irma's path in just a moment, but first let's get to our team of correspondents. We begin with Mark Strassman in Miami Beach, which is strangely quiet after so many people left. Mark?
South Florida's last-minute evacuees stampeded into gridlock on the Florida Turnpike. Traffic stood still for miles. Shelters overflowed with pets and people. At this Miami high school, among 40 shelters in the area, more than 1,000 people were turned away.
You're going to wait in line, but the buses will be picking you up. We're going to find you guys a place to be safe, okay?
People stood in line to buy propane, water, and food. A storm of price gouging has hit the state, and Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi called out some companies by name.
7-Eleven, come on. This isn't the time to make a buck. This is the time to help your fellow citizens.
Miami-Dade County has ordered almost 700,000 people to evacuate, including Sherry Schwartz. She worried what she may come back to.
I'm really afraid. I am. I have to be honest. I'm afraid that there might not be much.
Really? It's that worrisome.
Tony and Rachel Coddington will ride out Irma in their condo. They live on the 15th floor of this Miami high-rise with a 3-week supply of food, hurricane shutters, and a great view of the storm when it barrels through here.
I'm not sure if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll definitely see what's happening.
Was it a tough call?
Very tough call. I want nothing but safety for my wife and our dog, and I think we can manage. to a degree, but it is scary.
It's Friday night in South Beach. The sidewalk should be packed with people, but take a look. This place is closed for business. Jeff, anyone in Irma's path here should be in a safe place by noon tomorrow.
Mark Strassman, thank you.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Hey, so we're back.
And we're going to talk about how natural disasters are horrible and they destroy people's lives. So,
Yep.
hope we're all got our popcorn and everything.
Okay,
So,
where are you gonna start us off?
yeah, unless does anyone else want to? Like, for anything else to say?
I'm cool with anything.
All right, so I guess I'll just say that, so obviously, Irene just happened, and that was a big deal. We talked a little bit about that, and in the beginning, I think maybe we should also talk about just how lives are affected. Wait, what I say? Irma. I said what I said.
Yeah,
I
you
said
said Irene.
That's the hurricane that I went through other than Sandy. Now I remembered it, but I used it in the wrong context. Irene is the other hurricane that I was in. I'm pretty sure. Okay, so anyways, so can we just talk about Hurricane Irma? And I think we should talk about how people's lives are uprooted. We talked about, St. Martin, how a huge part of the island was rendered, uninhabitable. And it's just insane. And I was talking to, and how lives are uprooted. I was talking to my aunt, which and she possibly had to evacuate, and she was like, well, I don't know where I could go. I mean, they don't say anything, they just say you have to evacuate, and that's a big deal, because a lot of times you have a choice and then you can plan things out, but they just say you have to evacuate. She was also saying how there's you can't get gas anywhere practically. I mean, it's the lines for gas are just insane. Thankfully, it was, it turned from a category 5 to a 4. Then finally, it was a 2 when it hit, around the area where she was in Florida, and that was great. So, I mean, that's it. The predictions for Irma went way down. That was great by the time it started, hitting a lot of population centers in Florida, at least. But just how lives are rooted, and try to put ourselves in their shoes and see what they're experiencing.
Yeah, because it's all very difficult, because you think about the hurricane while it's hitting and evacuating, and then what happens after that, because people's houses and places are basically submerged and destroyed, and you kind of, it's funny enough, and you don't really see it much, but because people generally, after the hurricane hits, it's kind of, they don't go back to it as much and see what happens to all the people that get affected. What do they do? Because for instance, your house was destroyed. As you said, they had to evacuate, but where are you going to? You kind of, if you're evacuating, you have to know where you're going. What are you going to do?
They don't give you any money either to evacuate. So
Yeah,
you don't have any money for a hotel, and if you don't have people you can go to, if you need to take a plane ride because there's a gridlock, then you're screwed. You're really screwed, and that sucks. And even if your house is completely destroyed, because keep in mind the insurance agencies only give you money after your property is destroyed, and let's say, and obviously, and there's so many loopholes that they can try to get around, which is another scummy thing.
I was on Reddit.
Let's say,
and there's a guy who used to work as one of those people who judge how much money you basically had in things in your house, and how just the way that people write things can drastically affect how much money they get back. The person just sees everything you write and tries to find the cheapest version of what you said you possibly can, or try to figure out maybe you can be lying about these things and just basically be the cheapest people you can possibly be.
Yeah, it's disgusting is what it is, because not only did they not have any money or pre-planned everything, you cannot buy if you don't have the proper money and planning. If you don't have the proper planning and you don't have enough money at that time, because normally people plan ahead for these things, you might need to fly out immediately. And if there's total gridlock, you might not even be able to get that. It's just insane, and no one helps you with that. I try to imagine putting myself in that area, and I just got this feeling of, isolation. It's like they're telling me to leave, but they're not telling me how to. They just say leave. It's like someone shoving you out the door, closing the door on your home, and then saying leave. You don't know what to do because you don't have anything.
Yeah, you're all on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like if you think about it, it's quite scary because like if, for instance, I thought of it and there were like simple things like say you have to evacuate, you can't exactly take a whole truckload of things with you. You'd have to leave some like things you kind of take for granted. You'd have to kind of leave it all behind and leave it to chance whether or not it's going to get destroyed or not. And then if it eventually does, you kind of stuck because of course insurance companies will their kill out of making money and they're going to try to find loopholes and keep, as you said, they're going to try and give you the least amount of money that they possibly can, which is really terrible because it kind of, for one, the whole if I'm recalling correctly, the whole claiming your insurance and that first of all it takes a whole while. So while you're trying to do this, you still gotta try and find a place to stay, try and decently sort things out and get things slightly in order if you can. So it's very sad actually, and it's quite disgusting, as you said, Neil. Forgotten again.
Neil.
As you said, that because they're basically trying not to help people as much as they can.
And let's say in a hypothetical situation that you do get the help you need, you do get the money. Well, then what? It's not like you can just go and be like, excuse me, sir, I would please like this house and give them the money. That's not how it works. You still need to plan ahead, think of what you're going to do. How do I get my belongings back? Where do I stay in the meantime? Like how much money is it going to cost for me to stay at a hotel if I can't stay with any family members? It's a big deal, and it's no laughing matter. Even if you do get all the money you need, it's no laughing matter. And then if it's a big deal when you do get the money, imagine how bad it is when you don't.
Yeah, it kind of makes me happy that we live in the age we do, because like I said, I found this post on Reddit that was basically a guy who used to work for this company and that he's trying to kind of get back against them and like help people out who are in these rough times, and kind of that the idea of social media kind of bringing people together in times of tragedy. I think I heard about like people in Florida were posting traffic and gas updates even while like people were evacuating, were staying and doing that. And I think that's really cool that we can do that in social media. And I think this show has always been a big proponent of social media and its positive influence on the world.
Yeah, and spreading information through the internet.
Yeah. And I know everyone out there is super interested in the personal lives of everyone who has ever been on the show. And we've actually had a few people who live in Florida or in unsafe areas that have had to move or relocate. There's some people who plan to be on this show today that couldn't because of literally the topic of this show, which I find kind of funny. I can't remember everyone's name, but there are some people that plan to be here today who couldn't. They're not dead or injured.
Yeah.
They're just moving.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, even preparing for it, as you said, they basically had to go and leave everything behind and not know if everything's going to be there when they come back. And the other thing was, I don't know, I think I heard it on the radio or something, they were talking about how the police wanted to be like entirely sure of, this is like very difficult to kind of keep track of, but people leaving basically their houses, I'm sure they locked them and stuff, but basically all these houses just left vulnerable for other people who would just go in and take random stuff. And it's terrible because you can't really stop that, because it's either stay there and maybe get hurt, or you could die, or leave and just leave everything there as it is to chance. So it's quite scary.
Yeah. there's also like just like you were saying, there's a big problem with looting. So does anyone want to say something? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, well, the other thing is, well, I kind of just thought of it now, but when it comes to like natural disasters and stuff, I always kind of find it scary that you could, like, a person could like completely go missing and no one knows where they are because it's a hurricane and there's like things flying everywhere and there's like really strong winds and people basically can get lost. And it kind of just scares me a lot that you could be in the middle there and you could go missing and only a select few people will realize you're missing. And what I really, well, it's something, it just kind of like, I think helps me a little bit. When I hear that like people are basically going door to door and looking for people, it just kind of like, especially you have to give complete credit to firefighters, policemen, all the people who volunteers, all the people who help out with this stuff because it's really important.
Oh my god, I love firefighters so much. I think I've talked about this on the show before, and I don't want to repeat myself, but firefighters are kind of the coolest in not only the fact that they like run into burning buildings and like save people's lives and just do heroic work on the reg, but they also like inherently in what they are can't do that bad things. Like I think especially today we're like, oh yeah, police are protecting us, but also they're really not. And like there's a lot of debate with that. But firefighters,
I see what you're saying.
Like you know what firefighters can do? They can like rob your house after they save it from burning down. Like fine, it's gonna burn anyway if it wasn't for you. Like that's the worst.
Yeah.
That's the worst that they can be, is like thieves of things that were going to be destroyed anyway. It's like they're inherently just good people.
And the
And
thing
they make
is
great
that
calendars. They just make great calendars.
and it's really and it really is it's also it's not even it's because the thing is a lot of times with and obviously I'm not saying that all police officers, not all police officers are, bad. I think there is some rhetoric like that on the internet, like all police officers are corrupt and want to make your life living hell.
All police officers. Absolutely. Just
they all suck. They all
don't matter. Hashtag.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Hashtag they suck. Yeah, and there's a lot of rhetoric like that, and I think that it plays into the reason is because, and I'm not saying, the reason I want to say that was just because of what I'm about to say now. It's the reason why some of them are corrupt, and it's because of it's almost, if you have in a court, and I say, and if you piss off a police officer, a police officer can say, oh, look, I found drugs in your car. You're screwed now, buddy. And who are they going to believe more? You know what I mean? The police officer could have planted that. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but when it does happen, you're screwed. And I'm sorry, but you are, because it's the truth. They're not really the court isn't really going to believe you. They're going to believe the officer. And the other thing is that when it comes to firefighters, I mean, they don't really have that legal power in that way that the cops have. And also the way they have to dedicate, I'm not saying, I really don't want to sound like I'm like saying, hey, police officers, they don't do crap. They're not no, of course, they're not dedicated to what they're doing. No, of course not. I mean, if it wasn't for them, some of us might not be here because of things we don't even know about, like criminals we don't even know that might be happening.
I like to think of it like the not all men meme that goes around.
Yeah.
Like, we all know not all men are terrible. I'm a man, and I'm only a little bit terrible. But it's the same thing with police. It's like enough police, though. Like, not all police are terrible. There's some great police out there. I've interacted with some great police, and there's some heroes out there, and they're great. And if you're one of those people, power to you, keep at it. But there's enough police that it creates a problem that we have to talk about. There's enough men out there that are creating problems that we have to talk about it.
I don't think we can. I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's as applicable though, just because of police officers aren't 50% of the population, and it's definitely more generalizing when it comes to things like hashtag not all men, just because of the fact of how it's 50% of the population and more generalizing. But the reason I was building up to that is because it's the way firemen dedicated, because they have to live and for extended periods of time in a firehouse, staying away from their family, fighting for just saving people's, just waiting to save someone's life and possibly walk into a fire, not knowing if they'll come out. And it's just the way they dedicate themselves, where they have to go for extended periods of time, not seeing their family at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. People stay at firehouses, but I think they can still see their families. But I mean, they're still here.
No, for extended periods of time, not like a month. Like you can't, like multiple months. It's just that.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's like I said. I think it's enough that it becomes a problem. I think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
definitely is enough.
Yeah.
It should be addressed.
A little funny thought that came to mind of what you would call it, people abusing their power. I know it's just a little funny thought, but it's ambulances who turn on their lights when there isn't an accident.
Yeah,
so they can
and police officers do that too sometimes. They turn on their lights. They turn on their lights to try to avoid traffic.
Yeah, there's a comedian, a South African comedian. He is on the, I don't even know what the show is called. Oh my gosh, I watch it. I don't even know what it's called. But his name is Trevor Noah, right? So he's a South African comedian. He's currently the head of a comedy show, or he hosts this comedy show in America. Yeah. So if whenever he's coming back to South Africa in a little while, or I think he already came. I'm not entirely sure. But he always comes back with interesting stories about how different it is there compared to here. For instance, he was talking about the whole racism issue and how it was like, okay, if it's a black person who shoots someone, he was part of a gang, and how these things are assumed and stuff. And when, for instance, it was a white person, it was, okay, this guy was like, he was mentally unstable, he had no friends, and then the joke of that line was, yeah, no Facebook friends, that's not possible. But it was the whole thing about how people see other people in general, based on the color of their skin or where they live, or simple things like that. And it's like how if you were a colored person, how if a policeman comes up to you, you basically could be charged with anything just because of your color of your skin, which I found was pretty terrible. But that kind of happens worldwide, so it's a big problem, I would say. I have no idea where I was going with this point, but I think it was that the whole corruption thing, as you guys were saying, it's not all of it, and it's a large portion, but big enough that we know about it and that it's a problem. But there is a good side to it all, because they really are. They really do help the world. If it weren't for them, as you said, doing things that we don't even know about, saving people and putting bad people behind bars, well, then we'd all be kind of dead. So.
Yeah, I think this is a little off topic, but I don't
off
know if
topic. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
No. I want to say.
I'm so sorry.
No. I want to.
No. We were all. And it's fine because the whole show was talking.
I want to caveat what that was saying. It's a little off topic. I think it's fine. I think this is a great conversation, and
yeah.
I think I want to keep going with this and say, my personal belief is that police officers are kind of a necessity, because you kind of have to have, if you want rules, you have to have something that enforces those rules. I mean, my personal belief is that we either can just totally rework the system and figure out something else, but just for now, police officers just need to be trained better. They're not trained well enough to deal with the kind of situations that they have, and that is a problem that can easily be fixed if we just train them well, and also train our kids not to be racist, which I know is a super hard thing. I also want to go on the record and say all firemen are morally good. That is a fact. All firemen are good. There's never been not just as firemen.
To a burning building.
yeah, just as people are forever just in the good and are morally correct people.
Because of their job.
I think that just a problem with because the whole thing is, unfortunately, you're talking about training police officers. It's like, well, unfortunately, I'm not sure how much training it can take to make somebody not an asshole. Just to say, I mean,
Then
I don't know how much
be
training you
police
can take.
officers. You can fail.
Yeah,
your
that's another
test.
thing.
You can
Yeah,
be like, oh,
but
you're a racist bigot. You can't be a police officer.
it's not even I think one of the biggest problems with that as a whole is just it's not even well, it is, but because there are a lot of police officers who there are police officers who are racist, but I think the biggest problem is the power that some of them feel. Again, some of them, without police officers, we would not, a lot of us would not be here. I mean, seriously. But again, some police officers, it's the power that they feel. It's like, oh, I have this power, and they're walking around like, I mean, have you ever tried? If in traffic, you don't cut in front of a police officer. Really, people just don't really normally do that. You don't do that because the police officer is like, how dare you? I'm an officer of the, again, not saying all police officers, but I'm an officer of the law. I shall pursue you and hunt you down because I deserve to get the head of all the traffic.
I think it's what we were talking about before about tribe mentality. Because there's also the effect of just like, if one police officer does a thing wrong, other police officers aren't, wow, this person is giving us a bad name, we need to make sure that they get punished. They're like, oh, that is my brother, I need to protect him even though he did a horrible thing. It's like, and then they kind of get insular and don't.
Yeah, I think we kind of need to find, if you want to call it a line with that, where you have to kind of say, okay, that person is doing something wrong. You can't protect him because he's done something wrong. You can't defend him because he's supposedly your brother or something. He's done something very wrong. You kind of he needs to face what he did, because if you leave him and you protect him and then it all goes away, then well, you're just leaving him to do it again.
It's like my mom always says, if I ever murdered someone, she'd turn me in. She'd visit me in jail and she'd make me sandwiches.
Yeah, my mom said that before too.
Yeah, it's like that's it's like if you love someone, like they I mean, especially police officers that are trying to uphold the law, like it is their duty, and if it stops at them and they fail, then what's the point? If we can't hold
that never came up with him for some reason. They didn't just randomly say, if you were a murderer, I would turn you. No, I'm not saying that they ran this.
Oh yeah, no, she randomly said this out of nowhere. We were at church.
She randomly said, she just ran walking up to you. If you were a murderer, I'd turn you in. I'd bring you in if you're a murderer, by the way, just saying.
Like personally, I'll drag you to the...
Believe it or not, that didn't come up. But
so my point is, guys, natural disasters are awful.
Yeah, that's what the past 30 minutes have been on.
What's the
back to that.
worst
Did you
natural
guys...
disaster?
No, okay, I don't know about how much of a natural, I don't know, does it count? I don't know. But do you guys did you guys see the that building that went on that was on fire in the United Kingdom? Where I think it was over 50 stories high. I don't know. I think it was quite taller than that. Basically, this building kind of caught fire somewhere near the bottom, and basically it was this crazy thing because this fire lasted forever, and then there was at one point there were basically live streams because people inside the building was on fire. These people were talking to their families because literally there was no way out. The building was either going to collapse or they were going to have to apparently some people jumped out of the windows. I don't think any of those people survived though. It was sad and insane because there was just this really tall building and there was so many people stuck in it, and there was no way to get them down. like apparently in the end, there was this whole thing about, I don't even remember how the fire started, which is quite strange. I think I followed. No, I don't remember, but it was quite insane because it was this entire building and it was on fire quite close to the middle or the bottom, and basically these people were gonna die and they knew it, and it was insane because, as I said, it's like you kind of get happy because, oh my god, happy is not the word. You kind of somewhat okay, I'll just use
Make
happy for now.
peace.
Yeah, because they, with the whole social media thing, they could stick their cell phones and talk to their family
Wow.
or stuff like that because they knew they weren't coming out of that building alive. And it was a very sad and eye-opening thing to see, but it was crazy.
The way people act in the last moments of, when people know that it's the last moments of their existence, it really is just, it's there's no really way to describe it how you feel. You don't feel, at least me, I don't feel like, oh my god, this is so sad. I just feel like, really, wow, this is a person's thoughts going through their head when they know that they're no longer going to exist. It's yeah, and and you really don't, and just how and a lot of times, that feeling of isolation that I was talking about earlier with the natural disasters and having been forced to evacuate, that can come back too, and it can come back to that, and that is just when you have, because normally there's always, thankfully, sometimes there's someone to turn to, or if you have a problem, you can maybe talk to your family, talk to your friends. But I mean, when it comes to that problem, you just, yeah, not a good thing.
It's quite it's a very difficult, interesting. I don't know what's the word, but because some, like with the whole hurricane thing, you don't know what was going to happen, and then this, because like it's a very difficult situation to kind of describe, I think, for some people, because, for instance, the people in the building, they knew they were going to die, and whereas other people, you don't know when it's going to happen. So like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but the whole thing of, yeah, they were going to go, and like what was going through their head, and I think it's like I don't know what's the word, but it's like, do you think it was better that they knew it and they could kind of prepare, if that's the word, and say their goodbyes, or would it have been better if they didn't know it at all? Totally going off topic here with the whole thing, but it's a very
This is an interesting topic to be on the TV show, on a show called Youth on Subjects of the World, because I think natural disasters really make people feel small and insignificant and powerless, which I think is a negative feeling a lot of us feel.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's natural disasters kind of make the most powerful adults feel like they're children again and like they're helpless. And yeah, go for me for thinking of that analogy.
that was the mosquito.
No, I'm really great because I thought of this amazing analogy.
You high-fived yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I find it kind of interesting because I think it does have that effect. It's a very like existential threat, and we kind of know how to solve it, but it seems so vast and like more power, like just me. I can't do anything about that. It's by myself. I am nothing compared to this, and it's very scary.
Well, going back to the whole tribe and community kind of thing, I think especially in moments like natural disasters and stuff like that, I think it's very important to stand together because, as you said, it'll make an adult feel like a small child again because they're kind of helpless. But when you have a community and open space, or rather a free space where you can share things, then it makes a big difference because I don't think you'd feel so lonely anymore because with people understand you, and if when you have a good community, it usually does make a big difference. If, for instance, you were in the middle of a hurricane or you did not know what was going to happen, I'd say it makes a big difference.
I wanted to kind of go back to is knowing that it's going to happen or not, like which one you feel better in. That's basically a hurricane versus a tornado, in my opinion, because like a hurricane, you know, like a week before, like more than a week before it's going to happen, but a tornado, it's like right on the spot. And it's either it's going to touch down or not. And that's pretty scary because it's just suddenly there. And so it's kind of just suddenly there compared to a hurricane where at least you do have preparations. And even people who, for tornadoes, have preparations, but like they don't know it's going to happen. And so it's just, I just feel that's more intense than actually knowing a hurricane sometimes.
Yeah, I meant to try to click on the unmute button, but I clicked the chat button and it took me to a whole area. But so I wanted to say that. So I think that, yeah, that's I think another difference between hurricanes and tornadoes is that when you see a hurricane, hurricanes affect but hurricanes affect such, like a wide array of people. I mean, Florida was in gridlock. I mean, it was just, yeah, it was complete. I mean, it was really hard to get out of the state. It was just, and if it hadn't been downgraded, I'm pretty sure Miami, I don't know how much Miami was. I'm pretty sure Miami did receive some flooding. I don't know how much,
Miami
but
did
I mean,
a whole bunch.
yeah, it's just, yes, it's definitely insane. I feel like tornadoes when there's a concentrated area, but when it hits that concentrated area, it's devastation. And then, but however, hurricanes, you have some warning, and it may not, affect you as much in that concentrated area. But it hurts and kills so many people and damages. Forget even, killing and hurting, either property damage. It can uproot your life. They say, you hear this a lot of times, nothing is worth as much as your life. And that's true. But it really does uproot and change your entire life. And people say, oh, that's just material things. You should be so happy to just be alive. And that's true to an extent because your entire livelihood and the way you live your life is just uprooted because your home is gone, your belongings are gone, where you live is gone. I mean, it's just, so, to an extent, that's true. But to an extent, because people's entire, the way they've lived their entire lives are uprooted sometimes.
Yeah, and I think we're talking a lot about hurricanes, but I mean, people suffer a lot from tornadoes, and I think there was a lot of fires and earthquakes. I mean, I know California basically deals with an earthquake every few months, and those affect people's homes a lot too.
I know there were a few fires in British Columbia, Canada, more recently, because I have a friend from there, and they mentioned that just one day there was a fire and it was just horrible smoke outside that they basically couldn't go outside because how bad it was. And that's also pretty scary, but I think that also does a lot of damage to land, but it's very interesting.
Well, for one, I said a little while back here in South Africa, we had a crazy fire in the western part of the country, and in that part of the country, I believe there were like crazy winds, so it was quite scary at how quickly this fire was growing because it had started off relatively small, and then it just spread, and it was insane because, like for instance, there was at one point there were like a whole bunch of people raising money to send like more firefighters that way, and it was insane because the fire was just like going and going and going, and the amount of effort and work it took to stop was it was pretty crazy. And then the aftermaths of it all was quite quite harsh because basically everything was burned and blackened. And with the same with what Niall said with the whole yes, sure, you're alive, but the whole your house is gone, everything else is gone. You kind of I think like you would feel kind of lost because you're there, but you're also not there because you're missing some key elements in order for you to be there, if that kind of makes sense.
I just want to say something really quick, just to let everybody know. We obviously don't have to. The show ends at 6, but if we feel like the conversation is going anywhere, which I think it is right now, but if we want to end the show, we can end it wherever we want, basically. Just wanted to let everyone know that. I didn't have anything to say.
What about floods, like the floods from hurricanes and all that?
Yeah, I know Hurricane Harvey, that was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of all the flooding it caused.
Yeah, I think Hurricane Harvey did a lot of damage in floods. Irma, I think, is doing a pretty good amount of damage in floods. I know even just in Miami, which isn't one of the higher flood rates, I think they went 3 feet for floods. Even that's pretty intense, and there's areas that got up to 5-8 feet. I think that's near Naples. I think it was Naples that had 8 feet that was going to be surged.
Well, speaking of aftermaths, like of hurricanes, like you kind of have, as you said with the floods, you kind of still have all that water sitting there, and I'd assume it would be very difficult because you kind of have to get rid of it, or to, for instance, start sort of rebuilding your house or trying to get things in order, because it'd still be very difficult with all this water and stuff going around. And as you said, there's wherever, sorry, I wasn't, I didn't hear exactly which places you said, but some places that have like a whole lot of water in them, it'd be very difficult to even move around if you have like you had a job or places you had to be. Like, for instance, a job, depending on how much the place had been flooded, you'd have to see if, like, okay, would you start to work? Or are you like in are you like would you start to work? But would it be like not possible at all for you to go to work? What would the whole situation be like there? As I said, traveling would be difficult if it's like completely flooded, because that's a whole new set of problems. And I'm pretty sure a lot of this like floods and stuff will still kind of be there even after the hurricane is gone, because, well, now it's I guess to another point, the whole cleanup afterwards it would take a very long while, because first you kind of got to get sorted, kind of get back on your feet, and then you begin this whole long process of kind of trying to get back to where you were.
Yeah, I mean, even after Hurricane Irene, I work down by this South Street Seaport, and there's a mall nearby that was like, or a shopping center that was destroyed by Hurricane Irene, and they're still like rebuilding it, and there's still like effects of like in construction and stuff built near the pier that is like still being affected. I know the transit systems are still recovering from those hurricanes. I mean, it's just like amazing to realize like so many years later, there's still all these like big effects.
Yeah, because as you said, like for instance, a shopping center, like in general, in the future, they're gonna kind of find a lot of problems like this, maybe when it comes to buildings and things like that, and then in some places people think everything's okay, but they might not know that there's a big problem with, for instance, the structure of the building or this or that because of this thing that hit. And it can also, I guess it can also be a danger to everyone because they'll not know about this problem and a building could come crashing down, or it's a problem, but it's also a big building, and how would you kind of go around that problem? So I guess, like you said, it takes a very long while to recover from things like this. And what's insane is that, as you said, they still haven't fully recovered, and already another hurricane has just hit. So I guess it's pretty devastating.
Yeah, it is a lot, and I've heard a lot from my mom. She keeps on saying basically after Harvey and Irma in both Houston and basically a lot of places in Florida, in probably the next year or so, there are going to be a whole bunch of jobs opening up because how much they have to rebuild and how much just got wiped out and all that. So once they get all these places up, they need people to work. So they need to actually get people to work at the places. So jobs for anyone out of state even, like you could go there and probably find a job pretty fast because how many job openings would be opened up.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting as well. Like, for instance, my friend in Charleston, he said the other day they had one of their busiest days at their coffee shop of all things. And I asked why, and he said, well, all the coffee shops in the area were closed because of the hurricane coming. And it's, as you said, it's quite interesting because, for instance, jobs, you're going to need a lot of people to help rebuild everything that's kind of been broken down or destroyed. And the thing is, the thing kind of sucks is, with stuff like that, in a lot of cases, I'd assume, you can't exactly pay every single person, or you kind of won't have enough people that you can pay who's going to be able to fix all of this. So you're going to need a whole lot of volunteers, and I'd assume that'd be quite difficult to find because these would be, yeah, go on.
With the volunteers, I know that it would be kind of hard to find volunteers probably in the area, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who would volunteer with helping with the hurricanes, a whole bunch, because I couldn't even see people just saying like, no, I'm not going to go volunteer if they're able to.
Yeah, because I find it really kind of, it's kind of heartwarming when you see people who go the extra mile to go help out, and just in general when you see volunteers and stuff, because if you think about it, a lot of these things like cleanups and, for instance, even when it comes to hurricane and like searching for survivors and stuff, sure, the firefighters and the police, and they all do a huge part, but volunteers are a very, very big part of it because, as Niall said, the 50% of the population is not cops. So it's very important that we remember that, yes, there are almost all of these firefighters and policemen out there helping, but there's also a very, very large amount of volunteers that are out there helping as well.
And there are, it's just, I think that, we're almost, I just want to reiterate on how that, the feeling of, how powerless you can feel. And honestly, I just want to put out my understanding. It's I can't comprehend how it can feel to be, uprooted like that and just not have, just because it's not even just, because I was talking about how, your house might be completely gone. It's not even that. It's that if you can't get a house in the same place, because let's say, so you can't get this house in the same place. Then in that case, literally everything that you've done in your life is uprooted. Not just your house, not just your belongings, not just a lot of your money because the insurance company screwed you over, but but where you live, the people you know, the things you do, where you work, all of that can just go down the drain in a second.
Yeah, because
So, and obviously, yeah. So obviously, we were just talking about how climate change and how that can help reduce some of the natural disasters and how things are happening. But I mean, to a certain extent, people are trying, saving water, doing this, doing that. We talk about what causes climate change, but then the rest of the probability, the rest of the people, I mean, you can spread the message, but other than that, you really are powerless. We're powerless unless we can try to, do our best about climate change. But other than that, we really are powerless. That sucks.
yeah, it's kind of a very scary fact because in some way you kind of feel like you have this power over a lot of things in general, like like you have this some sort of power over your entire life, and then as you said, I don't think I would be able to either, but comprehend the fact that a hurricane just came and basically just hit your house, and how you feel so powerless after that because, well, that was kind of, as you said, it won't just be your house, it'll be the place you live in and the people there. And I think it's quite scary when you come to think of it, how quickly things can just go away or vanish in kind of blink of an eye because of things like that. And I think it's kind of important to remember that yes, you do have power to a certain extent, but you are powerless. And not entirely that you shouldn't feel bad or good about it, but that you just kind of have it in the back of your mind that yes, there are things you can't control.
Somebody want to add something?
I don't have much.
If we
yet.
want, we can. Oh, go ahead.
don't-
Yeah, we can go into closing statements if you guys want. We can go
Yeah,
ahead
I
and do
think we should do that soon because I don't
that.
have.
All right.
have
So
to-
whoever wants to start, go ahead and say a closing statement.
Closing statement for me is natural disasters aren't fun to be in or any effects, and if you can help any way you can, you should help. That's it for me.
Yeah. Climate change is real. We need to work on our climate change problem and apparently also our police problem and also our world empathy problem. Do what you can for yourself and as much as you can for others.
Mine would be that climate change is real, natural disasters are real, but it's important to help each other and see each other through, and even with the after effects, always come together and stand together and help in every way you can, because together you are more powerful.
So I would, I guess I'll say that climate change is real. Sorry, all the climate change analysts that I offend, it's real. I talked about, how the benefits definitely outweigh the defects if we're wrong about climate change. That cannot be said. The same cannot be said for climate change denials, especially with all the evidence on our side. I already talked about what, causes a lot of climate change emissions, about how animal agriculture industry, the transportation industry is 13%. We talked about, safe recycling and buying an electric car isn't always just the best option. Just going out and buying a brand new electric car because they have to go through factories for that, and possibly, electric power plants that use, fuel that puts other harmful stuff in the atmosphere. Anyways, basically, you can start reducing on, things that I was talking about and that we were all talking about. But other than that, when it comes to natural disasters, the only thing you can really do is if you're there, you can help. You can donate money because money always helps. But when it comes to how people are emotionally scarred, how their lives are uprooted, a lot of times we can't do anything. And that's a sad, harsh truth. So with that note, hope everyone has a great day.
And next week on Houston Subject of the World, why the Earth is actually flat.
It's true.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
That wasn't a joke, the Earth is flat.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire, the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.